Hey everybody, John White here. I'm going to introduce a new form today. And this form, the one that's on your screen, is new standard form 715, just newly adopted. And it is going to help you through this transition. The forms committee met and voted to give you guys a form to make it easy, simple. It's a one-page form in order to bring existing agency agreements into compliance. So we're going to talk about it today, talk about a few contingencies. Also, you can look for a Q&A coming out in the Realtor Rundown that also talks about this form so that you guys can have a full basket of tools to be able to cover this form with your agents and your firm so that they know what to do in order to be able to come into compliance with the new MLS rules. So what this is a standalone one-page form to amend your agency agreement. And so you can see at the top, we got client, we got firm, and then we have every single agency agreement known to man in the NC Realtors library. And just in case there's some other one out there that this may work for, we got another. So even if you've got something out there that's not standard, but you may find useful for this form, talk to talk to your legal counsel about it or not. But there is an other line right there in case you have something that is unusual that you think this may work for. So let's talk a little bit about what this amendment does. Because it's a little bit different than Form 710, which is just the regular standard form agency agreement and amendment, right? So the first thing we got here is standard form pre-printed language, and that amends the agency agreement two ways. One, it puts the compensation disclosure that was added to the existing agency agreements that just came out July 1st, and it's a disclosure that says that the compensation is not fixed by law, negotiable, and it is individually set by firm or broker. Okay, so that's number one. That's 1A. 1B just has to do with additional compensation, and very simply, it would amends the agency agreement to do again what was put into the new forms that came out. If there's additional compensation in the transaction, then your client must agree to it in writing in order for your firm or the broker to be able to receive it. Otherwise, you're only entitled to get whatever you've stated your compensation is with your client in the agency agreement, okay? So it's those two amendments, right? And then finally, paragraph 2 makes it clear that all the other terms and conditions of the existing agency agreement, including any amendments to that agency agreement, are just going to continue to roll right on through. Everything else is full force and effect, okay? And then we got the signature lines for your client and everybody else. So let's talk about, as far as the way this works, I hope it's relatively self-explanatory, but let's talk about a couple different contingencies that firms may be considering in this scenario. Number one, what is the difference between this, using this amendment and just executing a new agency agreement? Well, as I just said, if you use this form, if you use the amendment form, everything with the old agreement is just going to keep on rolling. It's going to be in compliance with the new MLS rules, and you just don't worry about it. Okay. If you and your client have had a series of amendments, you like having that history in there, then that's certainly something that you can do. Just so while we're on the topic, just so everyone is aware, the NC Realtors forms policy allows a 60-day grace period, and that 60-day grace period starts on July 1st. And what that 60-day grace period means is not that you've got to go back and redo all your agency agreements that are already out there. Instead, all it means is that as you go forward, you need to adopt the new forms and start using them on new clients as they come in, okay? And so that's what the forms policy, it requires, okay? And that's every year, all the time, all right? So if you have an existing agency agreement, it's not like you have to run out and sign a new one just because the new forms come out. Besides, who knows what your clients would do? Clients be squirrely. So, we don't want to put you in that position. You don't have to be in that position. So if you know your client, it's more beneficial to try and do just a one-page simple amendment and keep things moving, then you certainly can do that, okay? So then that's what this is meant to do. I'm meant to give you a good option to do that. So what is the difference between this then and then doing a new agency agreement form? Well, there's language in the agency agreements, all of them. And what that language says is that once you sign the agency agreement itself, like the actual form, that there's nothing else outside that agreement that exists, whether it's oral, whether it's in writing, whatever it is, It's just doesn't exist, okay? And so that means that if you sign a new agency agreement with the client, whatever you had before, including any amendments to whatever you did before, they're just gone, okay? They are null and void. They have been replaced. So it's a pretty big difference between the two. Functionally, it's going to get you into MLS compliance either way, right? But as far as the consequences, if you will, of doing a new agency agreement compared to just amending and the existing agency agreement to bring it into MLS compliance, it's a big deal. I guess as far as the potential consequence, maybe in some transactions, but probably most transactions, there's just not simply going to be that big of a difference. Really, this one-page form is just to hopefully make it an easy thing for you to transition through the process. If you want to do a new agency agreement, so if that's your firm policy, by all means, go right ahead. All right. So the second question that's very likely to come up in my view, although who knows, there could be a lot of other questions, I suppose. But the other one I think that's probably going to come up pretty commonly is, what if my client doesn't sign, right? What do I do? And in that event, the Q&A is going to talk a little bit about this too. So if you need sort of a written, guidance on, what you should do in that scenario. The first thing is that this 1A, this compensation disclosure, you can send an email to your client and that has this disclosure and be in compliance. So you can at least comply with that part, okay? And I would suggest that you go ahead and do it. There's no harm in just giving the disclosure even by email. So, if you got a client that won't sign this, they won't sign a new agency agreement, you've done your best efforts, to try and make that to happen. It's just not happening. Okay, then we'll go ahead and just send them that, at least the compensation disclosure part. Okay, so that's number one. But on number two, as to additional compensation, what I would recommend, and what the Q&A is going to recommend, is that if you really got a client that is, you've done everything you can, they're still not going to sign this, you don't know what to do about additional compensation, I think it's best left to talk to somebody on a case-by-case basis. I think if you can call the legal hotline, we will walk you through those cases on a case-by-case basis. I'm not sure how common this will actually be. I hope I'm not inviting a deluge of phone calls. But I do think as far as member service goes and being able to correctly give you help about additional compensation in a given transaction, that's the best way to go about it. So there's no standard whatever. Of course, you're free to consult with your own counsel, if that's what you want to do. But the legal hotline is there, and I do believe it is something that will be able to give you general guidance sufficient enough to navigate most of those scenarios. So if you've got something difficult like that, we'll talk a whole range of things, and including, I can tell you, one of the things we'll probably end up discussing on the phone or email, if you email, is simply, whether this client is a good fit for you or not as an agent. And, I think those are hard conversations to have, but I do think they're conversations you may need to have. Because at the end of the day, I think it's really important to remember that both of these amendments are in your client's best interest. And so, you're presenting this to them, it's in their best interest. Hopefully they'll be able to just read that. But I think if you wanted to just tell them that, I think that would be honest, and I think that would be true. And if they don't believe you, then you could also just tell them, listen, you don't have to believe me if you don't want to. Feel free to, consult with a lawyer, whatever. This is not an attempt to hoodoo you or anything like that. We are just trying to do what is best for you, and do what you guys do as realtors, which is go out there and help your clients, put your clients first, buy and sell real estate, and have relationships. I think that those things are just not going to change. And, those are positive things that obviously you guys should continue to do. And I don't think that this, bringing existing agency agreements into compliance shouldn't be something that causes a lot of heartburn for that kind of thing. So just so you know, those are conversations that you may need to have with us, but feel free to give us a call on the legal hotline if you get into that situation. Other than that, we are getting close. We're counting down the days until the MLS rules start going into effect across the state, and we will be here to support you as those rollouts happen. and give you guys the tools you need to navigate new territory. The new forms are out. They came out July 1st. They should be in zip forms, including this new 715. It's going to be a little bit of a lag time just because the way the timing worked out, but by time you see this video, it should be there. If nothing else, it's on the ncrealtors.org website. So feel free to just download it there and use it if you need it earlier than later. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, you guys keep on carrying on.